on this particular thing. Like
Yep.
if you have a problem with it, then talk to the Vikings. I'm sure they'll have very, very kind and accepting words for you, and they won't just kill you. You know?
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
imagine you go up to a Viking and say, "I disagree with your gods." They'd be like,
I mean, look at what they did to Christians
"Yeah,
in England. just look at that. Like, that's a prime example of what they would do.
yep, yeah." It's funny to me. Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Too Much Film podcast. Fortunately, we missed you guys last week because there was literally nothing to talk about. Which, that being said, we are probably going to be doing a slightly different release schedule from here on out. We kind of realized, like, some of the restrictions with the way we're currently doing it.
Yeah.
Especially, like, Loki was a big reason why we noticed that. Just because essentially it limits us to, like, you know, if we kept the same schedule of doing Wednesdays every single time, then every single Loki review would be coming out basically the day that the next episode's out.
Yep.
So it just wouldn't work out. And in general, like, you know, there's been multiple times where we've reviewed something very late. So in general, yeah, I think it's just easier for us to record and release whenever we make content, pretty much, or whenever something comes out. But anyway, with all that being said, we're happy to finally be back with you guys. And today we're gonna have a good episode for you. We're gonna be reviewing basically the first half of the season of My Hero Academia, and then we're gonna be talking about the first episode of Loki.
Yep.
All right. So, Jacob, if you want to start us off here.
So everyone's probably thinking, at least with the joint training arc of My Hero, that it was just very boring.
Yes.
Yeah, very boring. I think it was cool because you get to see, like, the quirks, especially of Class B. You get to see their quirks more developed in action. So it's like, it's kind of cool for the sake of just seeing quirks, I guess. But beyond that, and other than the last two episodes, it was just kind of like, meh.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like, that's the thing, and I feel like you just get that with these kinds of arcs, like, anytime where, because I feel like there wasn't all that much character development until, like, the very end of the arc. Like, you know, you look at similar arcs, like, I'd say that in terms of plot structure, this is very similar to the I forget what it was called exactly, but, like, basically when they had the tournament in season 2. Like, it's very much like you see everyone fighting, and like
even though the sports festival
that's
arc
what it was.
did have a bit more character development for, like,
Well, that's what I was gonna
Todoroki
say.
and all
Like,
them. Like, they had more development.
Like,
in that
that
than
was
this.
significant. Like, every episode, even if it was a side character that you didn't know much, like, it really put a lot of effort into developing them.
Yep.
Where this one, the only character that really got any kind of focus, I'd say, is maybe Shinzo. Like,
Shinzo, Bakugo a tiny bit.
Tiny
Same
bit.
thing with Todoroki, a tiny bit, and then Deku, but that's way more in the development of One for All.
Yeah, and that was at the very end of the arc.
Yep.
Everything up until that point was like, oh, okay, we're gonna this battle with, like, basically no development, and this like, you know, and you're watching these episodes, and it's usually about an episode and a half dedicated to each fight. And, you know, especially, like, in our case, where we knew what was coming. Like, we generally had an idea, like, okay, at the end of this arc, there's gonna be, like, a big moment. If you were, like, completely anime only, you had no idea what was going on, you would hate, like, up until that point,
You'd just be like, what the hell, you're wasting my time.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, especially with Bakugo, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, he can actually work as a team now. Even if it is centered around him, he can work with others now, which he couldn't really do before.
Yeah.
And with Todoroki, if you think about it, Todoroki's slight development here and his development in the sports festival, they're kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
If you think about it, right? Like, even though the sports festival, Deku got him to actually use his flames, which, like, he didn't do before, but he still primarily used his ice. But now he, like, primarily was using his flames, and he was trying to do his dad's move, prominence burn, but he couldn't get the temperature up to that heat yet. So it was kind of like inverses of each other. And you can kind of see how he was then versus how he is now.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I'd say the first two battles I didn't care all that much about. Like, you did, I mean, it was cool seeing, what's the guy's name? The bird guy?
Oh, Tokoyami?
Yeah, Tokoyami. He got, like, the new powers that they kind of introduced.
Yeah, he can fly now.
Yeah, and stuff like that. Which you just reminded me of that crappy Rise of Skywalker scene, the whole, like, they fly now?
Yeah.
But no, basically, yeah, I think there just wasn't that much. I mean, I'd say it progressively got better and more interesting, but it was like, I mean, it was basically like kind of going up a very, very not steep hill, and then all of a sudden the Deku battle happens, and then it just goes way up there.
I mean, it had to.
Yeah, it did, obviously, but I don't know. It's one of those arcs where I'm like, okay, they could have, like, easily had Deku just be the first person to do the battle, had that happen, and then that was the arc. It could have been, like, a 2-episode arc.
Yeah.
And you would have gotten pretty much the same stuff out of it. Sure, you would have missed, like, that minor bit of development for Bakugo and Todoroki, but, like, you could do that at other points.
Yeah, and like, the one thing that I do have to give My Hero, even though the Joining Training arc was fairly boring, it does stay true to the manga.
Yeah. Well,
like, like that, all of that we saw was in the manga, and it's just sticking to that. So it's like, you can't completely complain about it, because it is sticking to the source material, but it's just not the best part of the source material.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I think you make a good point, but yeah, no, this, in terms of, like, this is very much like a filler arc. Well, not entirely filler, but, like, a good amount of it is, like...
It's canon filler.
It's, like, padding out the runtime.
Yeah.
More than it needs to.
Mm-hmm.
But...
I mean, especially because technically there are 11 episodes into the season, and this next episode is really just going to be filler at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the last 2 episodes, to be honest, it kind of made up for it. And plus, seeing Todoroki and Bakugo, like, actually put on a display, like a show is essentially what they did. Like, that was pretty cool. But in reality, I'd probably say it's, like, the last 4 episodes of the training arc were decent.
Yeah.
Especially the last 2 were good. But,
yeah,
like,
decent. Like, the last 4 were decent to good, like, in that range. But, yeah.
I mean, specifically with the last 2 episodes, I really enjoy how they're portraying One for All to completely be, like, to be, like, its own realm. That it's like when the past users die, they essentially assimilate with One for All. So it's like, and I mean, obviously none of the other past users were able to do that like Deku can, but I mean, that's more so of just like a main character thing, I guess, and it is supposed to be like his time, like he's the 9th user, blah, blah, blah. But I also found it really cool that, like, he talked to the person who had Black Whip, whose quirk that originally was. Like, talking to him was cool, but I also really like how they pointed out, it was like, what, you don't have a mouth? Like, the past user could see his full self, but yet, for our sake, we could only see the parts of him that have unlocked One for All. It's like, which is now his hand, and then, like, up to his nose.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool for us, but, like, we know for them, they can see, like, all of themselves, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's also cool, the idea of, like, how Deku has control over, like, which abilities he wants to use, essentially. Like, if he says, like, or if he, like, deep down feels like, I don't want to use this yet, it'll go away, and until he's, like, actually ready, it won't come back.
Yeah, I mean, especially for Deku, I mean, I've looked into, because there's a mention like, oh, you're gonna have 6 other quirks. For him. So, like, right now he technically has 3, right, inside of him, and then they'll have 6 more formed, right? And I know from like my research that like All Might didn't have a quirk, so like you get nothing from him. But from All Might's master, her quirk is just kind of like meh. It's like you'd think the predecessors of One for All would be way more specific in choosing on a quirk basis or a personality basis. Like obviously it depends on who they choose to pass it down to, because it's like All Might's master's quirk was called Float, and she literally just floats. Like that's it. Floats.
Yeah,
but I guess with One for All, she can kind of like fly.
Yeah, that's the thing. I would say that like, on its own, that's a pretty lame ability. But when you add that on with One for All, is like kind of more your main moveset, and it's just kind of it's like I'd say it's like a perk in Destiny. It's like, oh yeah, you can also fly.
Yeah, now the question I have with that is, obviously manga readers know, but it's like with the whole stockpile quirk added to One for All, like Black Whip is insanely more powerful than when the original user had it. But like, what does that mean for Float? Like, how does that stockpile? How does that one get more powerful?
Maybe just like longer duration or
something.
Something. Maybe you can go up higher than you could before. Maybe you can float with like more weight, like if you were picking something up.
Maybe.
Like, yeah.
But it's just interesting, and I believe right now, like in the manga, he has like 4 of the quirks, I guess. So there's still the 2 more, but from those 2 users, those are the users, the second and the third, that we've never seen before, even in like flashbacks.
Yeah.
You've never seen the second and the third user. You've only seen from the 4th up.
Yeah.
So, but like some of them are pretty cool. Like I've looked, like one of the quirks that he'll get eventually is almost like a 6th sense. Like it's called like Danger Sense or something, and he like can literally like know when something is gonna happen.
So like Spidey senses.
Yeah, basically he's basically got Spidey senses, and he'll just like know. But it's weird because it can be misleading. Like I've heard it's like a super specific and weird quirk that like it's Danger Sense. Like when in Spidey sense, it's like it's gonna happen to you. Like something's happening to you. This is just like a generalization, so it's like you know when something's gonna happen, but you don't know if it's gonna happen to you, a person around you, like a building. You don't know what it is.
That's interesting. That's actually a lot like, I mean, like that's very similar to what's going on right now in like the Destiny storyline. Just thinking about that, and like, cause right now you have the whole thing where like the sun's gone, and then you have this group, the Future War Cult. And like what their whole thing is they use this like Vex technology to look into the future and see a bunch of possible futures. And like for instance, they had predicted the Red War. Like they knew that was going to happen, so like they survived it because of that. And basically now they're predicting like with the Fallen living in the city or like that specific house, that like they've seen some futures where like there's fighting. Like a battle, and they essentially like kind of being like very racist towards them and like trying to get rid of them, like they don't want them there. Which the only reason that I bring that up is because it's like, okay, but they're seeing all these possible futures and like they don't know many details about them. They just know like very basic
super
things.
Vague.
Yeah, very vague. They don't know like what caused it, what led to it, what's like what the outcome of that's going to be. So and that's always interesting because then there's a lot of potential scenarios where like, you go with the instinct and like what you see, and then it turns out like either it could be like you ended up causing it because you tried to prevent it, or it could be like, oh, you thought it was like gonna happen at this place, but it happened somewhere else, and like,
Yeah, exactly. But it's super weird too because at least the creator of My Hero has said the manga is actually going to end within a year or 2. Which, like, from what I know of the manga right now, it, like, puts it in a weird position.
It's a weekly... Is it a weekly or a monthly?
I think it's a monthly.
Okay.
But, like, the chapters are a lot longer than normal. But, yeah. And now we have the My Villain Academia arc, which is arguably one of the best arcs in the a whole series. So that's going to be cool to see. And beyond that, there might only be like 1 or 2 more seasons of My Hero, but you already know there's going to be some sort of like
follow up.
Follow up, like a Naruto Shippuden type of deal to it.
Yeah, I would be interested to see what the title of that follow up would be, because like, you know, it's like with something like Naruto, like, you know, Naruto is just called Naruto because it's like the character, and then you can just add on another like subtitle. But it's
with Shippuden's actually like the Kishimoto was very smart in doing it this way. Shippuden is like another form to say like wind, and Naruto's like chakra nature is wind.
Okay, well that's cool. But
so like that it makes more sense. So it would be really cool if you kind of did something like that, where it wasn't just like a complete like wiped name. If it was something different, but still was involved.
Yeah, but like it's recognizable, I'd say. Like,
you exactly. You know that like when you see that it's like this essentially the follow up to My Hero Academia.
Yeah, because like I can't think like it because it's like My Hero Academia. It's like essentially like My Hero School.
Yeah,
it's like okay, so then it's just like would you just call it My Hero?
Mm-hmm.
But then people would start being like, okay, well then that's weird because then we already call it My Hero and everyone just knows like the academia part. It's like when the Xbox One came out and everyone was like, what the fuck, we called the original Xbox One because it was the first one, so now we have to call that one like, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, at least I'm hopeful for the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think that one's obviously going to be a much more good arc, like just based on the manga.
A lot more plot driven and a lot more development for the villains, which I think is good.
And I think that, you know, just based on the fact that they followed so closely to the manga for this arc, which wasn't nearly as good, like I would not expect them to change much or like deviate too far. So I expect it to be pretty good.
Yeah, same. I mean, overall, this arc was like needed, but it was also just happened to be boring.
Well, it was needed, but I still like, and it was boring, but I think it was boring because it was longer than it needed to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it definitely overstayed its welcome. I think that like especially the first 2 battles, like those could have been done. Those could have been done in 1 episode.
Yes, definitely.
And then then you could have had that episode could have ended starting off with the 3rd fight, and then that was a decent episode. The next episode was decent, and then you have the crazy ones. Like that would be a much better arc in my opinion. But,
definitely. I mean, overall, I'd probably give the arc itself maybe just like a 6, 5.5, a 6.
Yeah, because I was
just because of the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, because I was trying like my rating, I would probably give it a 5, and I was gonna give it a 6 for like the longest time, but then I'm like, well, but like the majority of the arc was below, like slightly below average. Yeah, and then.
Yeah, I'd probably give it a 5.5.
Yeah, the ending bringing it up, like it brings it up a point, but like, you know, I mean, I guess the way I'd put it is like, you know, if you were watching anything and all of it, like, you know, it's like the first 90% of it, like say it was a show, it's like almost all of it was garbage, and then the ending was like good, but not like anything special. Yeah. Why would you call it great? Like it's Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, I just really liked the subtle character development. I mean, I feel like, at least within Class 1A, the most important characters are, like, Deku, Bakugo, and then Todoroki. They have the most prominence within, like, not only the series, but just in general, they have more connection to the world.
Yeah, they're the only ones that are, like, they get a lot of focus. They aren't static characters. They don't exist for comedy relief. Yeah. Or just to be annoying. Like, yeah.
Exactly. So I'd settle at a 5.5, just because I really like the stuff with One for All. Yeah. Like that part to me is just really, really cool. Yeah. Like that could carry, and I mean I love Todoroki too, so it's like any bit for him I'll take.
Yeah, and I'll stay at a 5.
Yeah.
But I expect the next arc to be a lot better.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
You know, I'm looking.
As of right now, I think my expectations for that are to be like at least a 7.5.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking
At
too.
least.
But yeah. Yeah, so I guess we'll probably take a break now, but we'll be at the end of we'll just wait till the end of the season and you know, give our final thoughts on everything here.
Yep.
When's the season going to end? Like,
well, considering that next week is going to be episode 12,
we might actually not do that. We'll probably have to,
and then it'll be another 12 or so episodes.
Yeah, it's like 3 months.
Yep.
So, yeah, we'll see about that, guys. We'll talk, because we are eventually going to end the season, like our season of like this podcast, because college.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, basically when like the newest episode for the last week is what we'll talk about, and then
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll wrap that up there.
Yep.
Right.
All right, guys. Yep, we're gonna take a break, and we'll be back to talk about Loki pretty much immediately. All right, guys, and we are back. Now we're gonna begin our discussion of the first episode of Loki. So, Jacob.
Should start off by saying the people who already think it's better than the Falcon and Winter Soldier and WandaVision are wrong.
Yes.
They're blatantly incorrect.
Yeah. Now, like, I will say that I 100%, if you were comparing the first episodes, I would say it's definitely better than the first WandaVision episode.
Yes.
And it's better than I'd say it's like worse, but not. I would say it's almost like completely incomparable to first episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier, because like that was more of like an action and kind of like starting off the character development episode, where this was like a character development / like expository episode.
Yeah, it's like I know what Marvel was trying to do, right? They took the 2012 Loki, undeveloped Loki, and essentially developed him within a 45-minute episode that they did in the Thor movies did.
Yeah.
In the Infinity Saga. So I get that. The development for Loki is great. They essentially spoiled what his life would have been for him. And the episode proposed a lot of like new concepts, like the TVA, and the fact that like the Infinity Stones only work within their realities. So like the Infinity Stones that were in the drawer in the TVA were essentially useless.
Yeah. And we had talked about this earlier in the week, but I think my only concern is that like the concept of the TVA, if they do like certain aspects of it wrong, I feel like it could negatively affect things. Like if
definitely.
like let's say in passing, like when they were talking about like the sacred timeline, like if one of them just passively mentions like, oh yeah, the sacred timeline, like we made sure that everything was going to turn out okay. It's like, okay, well then, you know, like that's
they have to be very choicey with their wording.
Because if they did that, then it would be like, oh, okay, so like they're always going to win.
Yeah, but I also really like that they confirmed that like the Avengers were supposed to go back in time, take the Avengers Stones, use them, and then put them back.
Yeah, although I do question because they... Well, no. Yeah, because no, that actually does make sense, because you would assume that...
Yeah, you would assume if like the Avengers went back in time and then took the stones, the TVA would interfere.
Yeah.
You would assume that.
I was more saying like you would assume like that it would like there would be minor differences, like them being back would create a separate timeline, because there were things that happened when they went back, like even though they're going to return the stones afterwards, like immediately, there were things that happened differently, like, you know, Cap fighting, like that didn't happen in the original movie. And like, you know, there's certain things that I'm like, did they just delete that whole timeline at that point, or like what did they do? Or did like the TVA just pull up and like fix what happened in that particular area and like let the everything else go?
It's something along like they gained possession of whatever stone they were trying to get, and then they gained possession, but then they put it right back like right before they gained possession of it, or like right after they gained possession, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess, but like...
So it's a super, like, fine window.
But still, like, you know, you'd have...
So it's like, in theory, right? Like, when Cap was going to return the Time Stone to the Ancient One, he in theory would have saw Hulk leaving.
The only thing that I could think of is like maybe the timeline rule or like the time travel rules are different than what we initially thought they were going to be. Because, you know, I think like the most realistic form of like time travel, at least that I would think, is like if you go back in time, everything that you did actually happened in the past.
Yes.
So like say you went back and you like talked to like George Washington or something. Like in the past you actually already did talk to him. But like you just didn't know that. So it's like you wouldn't be able to go back and change anything. It's just anything that you did you had to do. Like so it could be like essentially that in the timeline like off screen throughout that whole time, like, you know, during the first Avengers movie, they're actually that conversation between him and, or, you know, like that, basically the whole thing over the time stone, like that did happen.
Yep.
And like we just didn't see it, and like because the timeline didn't really change, like,
yeah,
you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we maybe just like, I mean, obviously people are thinking what we're saying right now, but like it's probably not meant to be thought about. I guess.
But I just think like, you know, obviously I had a few things that I mentioned like after Endgame and that I thought like were some minor inconsistencies. Like it didn't ruin my enjoyment, but I just was like, oh well, okay, like that was a thing.
Yeah.
And now I feel like they're putting so much effort into explaining that they're making new problems.
Yeah.
Or new potential problems. Like I think that like this series definitely could have some implications outside of itself that I wouldn't like, but I also think if it was done well, it could have good implications. Like it's
I mean, the whole concept of the TVA is super interesting. But now it's like with the going forward of the MCU, and they make a decision, like a significant choice or action. It's like, all right, well, that was obviously meant to happen.
Yeah.
They've like that was what they were supposed to do. Like that was the correct answer.
Although what would be interesting is that if this then goes back and like allow like maybe the conclusion of this show is like they get rid of the idea of the sacred timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And then like they allow the multiverse to exist, maybe starting from the point where like, you know, Loki teleported away. Then that sets up like the fact that the multiverse is going to exist in all these other properties that, or all these other shows and movies that happen later on.
Yeah.
Like, which I don't think that would be a bad choice if they were to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like, at that point, then you wouldn't even have to question, like, well, how does this affect what happened, like, with this and that?
Yeah, at least I feel like with this first episode, the main purpose of it is obviously to develop Loki, develop the undeveloped Loki that was originally developed, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, like
that was the main point of this first episode, and then to introduce how the TVA works.
It was very much, like I said at the beginning, it's like an expository episode.
Yeah.
Like, it's all about just explaining...
Yeah.
You know, getting you caught up.
I also do like the like they at least to Loki's mythological character, they stuck pretty cut and dry with what Loki is. Because I mean, I would hope eventually they'd introduce like Loki's children. Because like even though they did change this, where like Hel was actually originally Loki's daughter, but they made it Odin's oldest. Like okay, like that shift within the realm of the MCU does make sense. But like I would like to see the World Serpent eventually. Like even though that Ragnarok has already happened, like in theory, I guess. But like,
well, although it is confusing to say, because like
it is.
I mean, for that Loki, it didn't happen yet.
That's true.
But like now he knows that it was. Well, I don't even know if that
was.
Well,
because I don't know if you consider the events of Thor Ragnarok actually Ragnarok or not. Like, who knows if the concept of like the Norse mythological concept of Ragnarok is still at play or not.
Well, true, because it was only Asgard was destroyed. You'd think, like...
You never saw, like, Thor never fought the World Serpent, which is what he's supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, honestly...
So that's why I'd like to see the World Serpent.
That could be, like, you know, it could be that in Love and Thunder, or even just at some point in the future, like, you know, the consequences of that... Like, you know, it's like it was a solution to defeat Hela.
Yeah.
But like then he's just loose.
Or maybe like the events in Thor Ragnarok were just the start. It was like the initiation of Ragnarok.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows?
That's what's confusing. And like, you know, Fenrir, Wolf, it's Loki's other child.
Yeah.
Like what's going on with that? Like, are they involved? But yeah, it's like regardless of all the Thor stuff with Loki, it's like, okay, yeah, they did all the development with Loki. They introduced the main purpose of the show to stop another variant Loki from wreaking havoc, right? And back to how correct they were in the mythological fact of Loki is that on his variant sheet they put gender fluid.
Yeah.
Which is what Loki is. Loki's gender fluid. Loki is both a father and a mother, so on and so forth. But like that's what he's meant to be. He's a shapeshifter. He can do.
It's funny too because you see all the people that were pissed off when they were. It's like, oh, Loki's gender fluid, and they're like, oh, this is the left, and blah, blah. And I'm like, or
no, it's
stay with me now.
It's culturally correct.
I'm like, yes, you don't understand North.
Oh, you're like, uneducated
on this particular thing. Like if
Yep.
if you have a problem with it, then talk to the Vikings. I'm sure they'll have very, very kind and accepting words for you, and they won't just kill you. You know?
Yep.
Like imagine you go up to a Viking and say, I disagree with your gods. They'd be like,
I mean, look at what they did to Christians.
Yeah.
In England. just look at that. Like that's a prime example of what they would do.
Yep. Yeah. It's funny to me, but
yeah, like that was correct with that. But now there are theories that this other variant Loki, like the antagonist Loki, is gonna be like a female portrayal of Loki.
That would be kind of cool.
Which would be interesting. It would be. I think that would be better, so that like you can see like Tom Hiddleston and whoever plays like the female Loki, and they don't have to do any of like the CGI stuff or whatever, and it wouldn't be weird.
Yeah.
I feel like that just make it way more cut and dry, and you'd be able to tell the difference between the antagonist and the protagonist.
Yeah. Bro, it is kind of funny to me though, like getting into like really the idea of the TVA, like the idea that if you decided like even the most mundane of choices and then it's the wrong one, you didn't even know that timeline thing was there, but like, oh, you made the wrong choice, you're gonna die. Yep. Like imagine it's like,
or you're gonna get reset.
You're like, do I want to have Cinnamon Toast Crunch or Fruity Pebbles? And then, like, you were supposed to have Fruity Pebbles, but you're like, I'm going to have Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And then they're just like, hey, buddy.
And then all of a sudden you just get, like, zapped.
Yeah.
Pop. And then you're gone.
Yeah, or, like, they do that thing. I mean, that first guy that got killed where he was, like, arguing in the line, and then he just suddenly is, like, they just kill him, and he's just like, ugh.
Yeah, no, but, like, what happens to them in that timeline?
Well, like, they're just erased.
Yeah, like that's like
but I assume
doesn't defeat the purpose of what they're doing.
Well, no, they erase the variant and then they put the reset things, like it starts them back and like they
until they get the correct answer.
Yeah, but why do they even bother doing the trial? Because it's like, how often is it like they find someone not guilty? Of
yeah,
being
that's
a
true.
Variant, like
it's pretty black and white.
Yeah, like. It's almost like a complete formality. It's like
you were supposed to choose Fruity Pebbles.
It's like,
but I wanted Cinnamon Toast Crunch. It doesn't matter.
It's like, on whose authority? Ours. Okay, why do you have authority?
That's my freedom.
Well, have you ever seen pitch meetings? It's like, oh, well, this is the timeline now. I decided, like, yeah.
But yeah, it's like I just feel like the first episode of Loki, they are treading on thin ice.
Yeah, it's very much like it's like they could easily skate along and get to the other side of the lake.
Yep.
And they could do it with some good figure skating techniques and everything. It could look amazing, but it could look terrible, and it could end up being that they just fall into the lake and freeze to death.
Yeah, I mean, it's also interesting on what they're going to do with Loki. Is Loki actually going to be dead and, like, this is the end of him? Yeah. Or people are theorizing that, like, you know, if Loki becomes young, then that essentially confirms, like, a Young Avengers and so on and so forth, which is, like, which you've already seen many of the Young Avengers in the past TV shows being Falcon and Winter Soldier and WandaVision.
I mean, they could do it but I also could see them just doing something where like they end up becoming the next generation of Avengers, like as adults though.
Yeah.
Like, which I mean, yeah, either way, like as long as they do it, I mean, really, my whole rule with anything is like as long as it's good, and like it doesn't fuck up previous things, I'm happy.
Yep.
Like, you know,
there's actually good content, but doesn't ruin what we already have.
Yeah, unless it ruins something that already sucked.
Yes.
Like if it contradicted something from like a small detail from the Hulk movie, it'd be like, I don't really care that much. Yeah. Like even that, because then at that point it's like, well, just Mark Ruffalo being in any of these movies contradicts that movie.
Literally.
So like, why would I care?
Yep. Which is actually pretty cool because Mark Ruffalo was spotted on set of the She-Hulk filming, so like that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling they might introduce Hulkling in that, which is another character that'd be in the Young Avengers. So. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of people being seen on set, it's so funny how many like pictures right now of people getting like, the actors on set. Like, did you see the Obi-Wan show?
Yeah.
Pictures? Like, yeah, that.
Did you see the one of Chris Hemsworth on the set of Thor?
Yeah.
Where he's just like huge. His arms were like 5 of mine bundled up together.
Yeah, he's not fat anymore, I would assume.
Yeah, he's huge.
I really hope that movie starts off with him and Quill being like, all right, exercise.
Because that comes out before Guardians, right?
I would assume. Yeah, because I feel like that movie is going to kind of be like... I feel like it's going to be sort of like how Civil War was, where it's like, okay, yeah, this is a Captain America movie, but it's also an Avengers movie. Like, I feel like this is like, yeah, it's a Thor movie, but it's also going to be like partially a Guardians movie.
Yep. Yeah, I mean... Loki is very enjoyable, and the concept is very interesting, but I would by no means say it's better than Falcon and Winter Soldier or WandaVision just yet.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I feel like people are jumping the shark with that one. Like, you have to, or not even that, just jumping to conclusions, because that's the wrong thing to say.
They're jumping the gun. They're getting way too ahead.
Jumping the gun. That's what I meant to say.
They're getting too ahead of themselves.
This show could jump the shark. That is what I meant to say.
But yeah, it's like it could be better. But I think as of right now, just on a base level, that Falcon and Winter Soldier was the most balanced.
Yeah.
Whether you consider that the best or not.
Well, it was nice. It was simple.
It was classic MCU.
It didn't. Classic. Yeah, it didn't do anything crazy, but it was enjoyable to watch. I thought it had good themes. WandaVision started off kind of weak for me
because it's just sitcoms. Like, we don't enjoy sitcoms
that I would not like. There's some sitcoms that are good.
Yeah.
But like that sitcom was one I would not watch at all. If like the first couple were like.
And now you do have to give it props though. Like the sitcom episodes were very accurate based on the sitcoms they were based off of.
Yes, that's true. But I mean, if they had chosen like, for instance, if like one of them was. Like, if they didn't go back all the way to the 50s and, like, say that all the sitcoms, like, were all the same one, and it was something based off, like, The Big Bang Theory, for instance, like, I probably would have enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I mean, even though I admit that, like, in a lot of ways that's not the best sitcom, I still find it funny.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I will say that I also do believe the WandaVision concept is more interesting than Loki's as of now.
Yeah, I think that... Yeah, because in general, well, it's going to depend on how it ends. Because I do think that, like, WandaVision's ending kind of was too simple for how interesting the rest of it was. It was
simple, but it did everything it was supposed to do.
No, I still agree, but I think that, which unfortunately, like, I do question sometimes if Disney Plus should be releasing these all at once.
Yeah. Because
I think that ending would have come off better had we not had time to theorize what the ending was going to be.
Yeah.
Because there were several, like, I mean, there's a lot of people that have said, like, fan theories are ruining, like, media because you're just, like, you spend so much time thinking of it that you, and you have all these people that can come together, like, on the internet and put these clues together. And, like, then you get to the point where you come up with something better than what the author could ever come up with. And, like, then you end up feeling disappointed.
Yeah.
Which, not to say that, like, theories necessarily are bad, but, like, the internet is, like, this is, like, a verified thing. people on the internet working together are like it's better than literally any detective ever could be.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was watching this thing where people were like, could Death Note work in like 2020? And they're like, no, it couldn't.
No.
They would figure out who it was in a day.
Yep.
I mean, like literally, and they were giving examples of like, yeah, there's this one guy who like he had a constant live stream going of like just an American flag in the wind, and like it was like mostly the American flag on the flagpole, and like you could just see a little bit of like background, and literally within like a couple hours people figured out the exact coordinates of it by like looking at the background and like using topographical maps and like calculating the angle at which the sunlight was coming down, stuff like that. I mean it was insane, but people just like, when you have all these people of all these different skills come together to work on a task, you know.
Yeah, I mean there are like, obviously just on a base level, Death Note would not work this day and age, but it also really could. Yeah, like under like the stereotypical Gen Z person, no, it wouldn't work whatsoever. But I'm gonna be honest, if it was in the hands of like me or you, yeah, well, we could probably pull it off. But you couldn't. You'd have to be very, very like meticulous, specific, and smart about it.
You'd have to be smarter than Light was.
Yes.
Like you'd have to be a lot more. Like there's things like, you know, and not to say he's not smart, but like he was too cocky. Like, you know, like for instance, I would do things like I would watch newscasts from like all over the world, so like it would be a lot harder to find, because it's like, oh yeah, all these killings seem to focus around this one region of Japan. I wonder where he lives.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know.
Or like, oh, all these people have died. They all happen to know this one person. It must be that one person.
Yeah.
But if you're like killing various people like around the world and it has like no rhyme or rhythm to it, the chances of them getting you...
Well, the only rhyme would be that they're criminals, but like that's it.
Yeah. Not even criminals, people.
Yeah.
Even if you just put on like maybe like a criminal here, a predominant political figure here, some company worker here, some CEO here.
Well, and then like
another criminal here, like you know, you gotta like
and you'd have to
do it.
What's interesting is like, you know, did you ever see the Netflix movie that was garbage?
I didn't even. I watched reviews of it. Like that was about it.
Well, that was so in there was like they added in one mechanic of the Death Note, which essentially was like you can burn the page to like stop what like the death that you wrote from happening. Mm-hmm. So. And I thought that kind of broke the concept, because like then you could just use it to have people do things for you. Like I could be like write down like, okay, so then somebody, they come over to my house and then they act as my servant for 7 years, and then after that they die of a heart attack. Okay, and then 6 years and 364 days I could just burn that page and they wouldn't die.
Yep.
And then I could write another page immediately that says the same thing.
It's like a huge mechanical loophole.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's just with Loki, it's not better than what we already have. It could be better, but you can say that about pretty much anything that they come out with.
Yeah, no matter like anything from the first episode, you can't.
Yes.
No, I mean we wouldn't give a final verdict right now, because like why? What do we have to talk about in terms of that? Like,
what am I gonna say? Like, I gave Falcon and Winter Soldier and WandaVision this, so that means Loki's it. Like,
yeah, it's like it's not done yet.
No.
When it's done, yes.
Yeah, then you judge it properly.
Yeah.
But as of right now, with everything it's standing, because people are like literally getting way too excited about it. They're like, oh yeah, it's already better than that. Yeah. And I'm like, no.
Well,
like,
people are
no, it's not, because it's not done. B, you're probably only saying that because you didn't understand the other two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the way I see it, it's like people have either been too excited in favor, or like saying that it's good, or too excited saying that it's bad. There's some people that have already said that this is like the worst series that they've done, the worst thing in the MCU, and I'm like, okay, but like it's not done.
Too early.
It's not done. Judge it on its own. Pretend like the other things. This is really just a long movie.
Yep.
Like it's
Or just a broken up movie.
yeah. Like it really you're supposed to see this as like one thing where you're taking it as like an episode by episode thing.
Yep.
And yeah. But
That's it. But people are like, for example, like Matt yesterday, like he was asking us our opinions upon it because his coworkers were saying that it was better than the Falcon and Winter Soldier and WandaVision, and I'm like, he said that as soon as he muttered the words out of his mouth, I was like, I completely disagree.
yeah.
Completely disagree. Even on a first episode basis, I disagree.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah, which it's understandable. Wow. Okay. I personally, like I said, yeah. First episode, I think it was better than WandaVision, and I don't think it's particularly comparable to
Yes.
the Falcon and Winter Soldier one. But I'd say that if I had to, I'd probably say I liked Falcon and Winter Soldier's first episode better.
Same.
But I still I thought this was good. But,
Yeah, I love the character development for Loki. I mean, like I said earlier, that's the focus of the episode. So kind of just push Loki along to the point that he was at Endgame.
Yeah.
And then move forward.
Yep. But
So I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it for Loki. I mean, the next episode, as of we're recording this, and as of this released as we come out.
When
with
you're
this,
watching it,
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, when you watch it, the next episode will be out.
Yes.
We're
We're recording this the day before, so tomorrow
Yeah.
the next episode will come out.
and yeah, guys. I mean, like I said at the beginning of the episode, we're going to be pretty much just recording these whenever we want to from now on.
Whenever we see fit.
And they're probably going to be shorter. Like depending on our schedules and things, it might be easier for us to like watch something and then do the episode immediately and like only have the episode be about that.
Yep.
So it could be like we go to the movies and see Black Widow with everyone, and then we all come back here, record the episode, and then upload it the next day.
Yep.
And like we'd only talk about that. Where like now the episodes are very much like it's just everything and everything. And honestly, like what we could even do would be like upload all of them as like clips, like our discussion on this,
Yep.
and then put the episode together where like the episode would have all the content
Like
for that.
more like a compilation.
Yeah, it would be a compilation of all the content for that week, and then that's probably what we would put up on like Spotify and SoundCloud.
Mm-hmm.
Where like everything else, you'd get like the smaller versions on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, first episode of Loki, I'm not gonna lie, I'd give it like a 6.
I'm not gonna review it.
Like I give it like on a first episode basis, based on my enjoyment, I'd give it just like a 6. I'm not basing it upon anything else, like individually.
And keep in mind, 5 in our scale is average.
Yes.
So, yeah, I guess if I had to, I'd say it's probably that area for me.
Like just
too,
on
but-
I'm giving it more on of an enjoyment level rather than getting deep into the specifics of it.
Yeah.
But just on an enjoyment scale, yeah, it's a 6. It's enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's different.
Yep.
Beyond that, we'll see how it goes.
Yep.
But as of this week, we'll be halfway through Bad Batch.
Yep.
Right.
So next episode, we'll talk about that.
And then Record of Ragnarok. It's a new Netflix anime that apparently is supposed to have really good fight scenes and everything. Comes out later this week on Netflix.
Yep.
We'll also do that.
Gotta hope that they don't pull a Yasuke on that and make it garbage.
But I think they got the right people
Yeah.
behind that one.
Yep.
So.
But yeah, guys. So who knows when the next episode's gonna be? It'll be sometime,
Yeah.
and we'll figure it out. But yeah. Basically, whenever we got time, it'll be the day after the day we had time.
Yep.
So, yep. All right, guys. Well, with that. It's been an excellent discussion. I feel like we got into a lot of it, even if we went off on a few tangents.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope to see you guys next time, whenever that may be, and we will see you guys next time.
Peace.